Epstein files. Remember those? So Representative James Coomer has just said that he doesn't think Attorney General Pam Bondi has the Epstein files, or else she would have released them. Or either that, those files were already destroyed. Now, this takes a lot of courage to say this because, when you have a system of lies and cover up, I mean, clearly people are going to be asking questions like, where are the files? These were promises made. Promises made must be promises kept.
What's next? I mean, we did a little bit of a preview on the Epstein files. Obviously, that's like finding a unicorn in Washington, D.C. You have come on and talked about that on this program, just for the sake of transparency, which is very big for you. And so, in closing, any motion on that, any movement on that? We hear that there's a timeline now.
I hope James has the Epstein files, because I don't think the Department of Justice has them, or at least the Attorney General does not have them, or she would have turned them over. The president ordered them released. The Attorney General ordered them released. We all know they have not been released. And one of my biggest fears that I had, and I expressed this with Kash Patel and a lot of people, Stephen Miller, and a lot of people going into the new administration. I'm like, I hope they're not shredding documents right now. This was a few weeks before the transition. I said, I hope they're not shredding documents, but you all need to go on that first day and try to get all this stuff released, because, my fear is from what I've dealt with in investigation.
So we're going to pause here for a second. All right. Because real quick, this is White House. Now, this article came out May 1st. White House has no specific timeline to release Epstein files despite Trump's promises. So this is important because they made this promise. They did. Attorney General invited MAGA influencers to see the first files of, or the first wave of the files of the Jeffrey Epstein files. Now, the White House says there's no specific timeline to release the rest. Attorney General Pam Bondi released the first phase of declassified files on February 27th, where people were jumping up for joy related to the now dead sex offender. She even invited some conservative online personalities to the White House to see the files for themselves. Conservative commentator Rogan O'Hanley, known online as DC Drano, was among the group who was given a white binder labeled the Epstein Files Phase 1. At a briefing on Monday, O'Hanley asked White House Press Secretary Karen Leavitt when to expect the bulk of the files to be released or any arrests related to the matter. She said she doesn't have a specific timeline for the release. I can assure you that Attorney General and her team are working on this diligently, Leavitt said before calling Blondi a bulldog. Yes, that's when people were smiling and jumping up for joy, holding files. Honest to God, if I was in that group and people were doing that and I was with them, I would have to immediately go online or post something on social media saying, I am so sorry for the actions of everybody else there. I am very apologetic. And that's all I would say, because this, my friends, is an absolute insult to so many victims of Jeffrey E., the infamous offender. That guy. I mean, is anyone not paying attention here? I mean, Trump made this promise that he was going to release these files. Trump made these promises that he was going to do it. So it's either they have them or they don't. Either they were shredded and destroyed or whatever happened. But see, they can't be released, because then it's going to upend the whole entire political system. Because what's the one thing that Jeffrey Epstein had over everybody? He knew them all. He knew the CEOs and the business tycoons. He knew the Hollywood directors and the producers. He knew all the actors and actresses. And he knew all the politicians, both in the United States and overseas. He was friends with Democrats and Republicans, friends with Trump, friends with Bill Clinton. Need I say more? And recently on the show, we did talk about, you better believe it, what happened to one of the victims, where she self-terminated herself. I mean, press X to doubt. But this is absolutely sickening. It is absolutely disgusting that we're still waiting and waiting and waiting. And even then, the demise of Jeffrey E., very suspicious. Power goes off, guards are asleep. Looks like self-deletion, but it's not. At least according to the coroner's report. Let's continue on to the rest of the video. Shall we? Indeed.
And in communication with this deep state apparatus, is they're probably in there shredding documents as we speak. So hopefully someone has a copy of that, and I hope we find out, because our task force has done everything, led by Anna Paulina Luna. You had her on your show many times. I mean, she's relentless. She's persistent. She's pretty frustrated right now that these files haven't been released, even though the president and the attorney general have ordered them released. But it's like I told Anna the same thing I told Patel and everybody else. I'm like, you assume that somebody in the deep state said, okay, we'll just put these in a file back here, this incriminating evidence on everybody, and maybe the next administration can do whatever they want to do with it. That's unfortunately the way it's supposed to work, but it hasn't worked with this deep state.
So they're just going to let the incriminating evidence sit there smoldering that could
Yeah.
put them all in prison.
Yeah,
Right?
no,
Yeah.
I wish they should. That's what they're supposed to do. But you and I have dealt with them, Vinny. You've covered the deep state as well as anyone. I mean, they cover their tracks, and it's just hard for me to believe they're going to leave incriminating evidence if the government was involved. If the government wasn't involved, I don't think they would have any reason to protect Bill Clinton or Hillary Clinton. They're never going to be elected anything again. I don't think they would have any reason to protect Bill Gates or anybody else. The concern I've always had about the Epstein file was the government involved. Did the government know? Was the government using Epstein and the videos to blackmail the most influential people around the world? If that's the case, then they knew there were victims of sex crimes there, and they did nothing. So that's the concern I have. If the government covers this up, I don't believe it's because of any love affair or affection for the Clinton family. Just like I never believed they were hiding and covering for the Bidens because they loved Joe Biden. It was because they hated Donald Trump, and they didn't want their agencies to be.
Or either that. Remember, Trump was friends with Epstein. They're all pals with each other, because you're going to witness something here too, folks. Trump is making these demands that these files should be released, but will they be released? Because if he's not releasing them, or either that, if he is right now not able to show them or share them with people, I mean, he's giving an order. Why isn't that order being respected? And then, of course, once again, because I always call this the blurring effect. And what is the blurring effect, Kit? Because in case you don't know, I call the blurring effect. It's because of the power of the internet. We have our smartphones in front of us. We're in front of our computers. We're so busy 24 hours a day that we don't even have time for ourselves anymore, that we forget. And eventually, what I think everyone is hoping, especially if you're part of the establishment, is enough shiny objects, enough wars and other things to distract you. You'll forget about the Epstein files. You'll forget about them.
Disrupted. The same thing with the Epstein files. I don't know this, but my concern is that that the government may have known a lot more and may have been an active participant, maybe with the intentions of intelligence gathering. Who knows? But at the end of the day, I don't think the American people would be okay if the government knew that crimes against young women were occurring, and yet they did nothing to intervene.
Now, I do want to pull this up here. I want to pull up the rest of this article. So again, the Attorney General requested that the FBI deliver the remaining documents the next morning. As of May 1st, only the first phase of documents have been released. Last week, a reporter asked President Donald Trump when the public could expect to see the release of more documents. He said he wasn't sure, but that he'd speak to the Attorney General for more information. I do not know what I do know that we've done the RFK and Kennedy RFK, he's talking about JFK. RFK, JFK, Martin Luther King is out there very shortly, so we'll find out. Trump added, we've really announced we're doing them in full transparency on the campaign trail. Trump vowed to release the documents. The White House has vowed to be committed to transparency, as the president signed an executive order in January regarding the declassification of documents related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Sr., and Dr. Martin Luther King. Monty released the first wave of the Epstein files and was met with cries of disappointment over the lack of new information. Florida Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna raged on X, "This is not what we or the American people asked for, and a complete disappointment. get us the information we asked for. Far-right activist Laura Loomer also fumed. There is one person who takes the blame for what happened today. It's Attorney General Pam Bondi. She wrote, I think she should resign. She went on Fox News and said the files were on her desk. Then she went on Fox News last night and said we would have the files today. She is a total liar. Now, Epstein, who had a number of high-profile friends and acquaintances, including 2 U.S. presidents, Trump and Clinton, and celebrities like Prince Andrew, again, died in a New York jail, air quote, in 2019, where he was being held on trafficking charges. He had been previously jailed after pleading guilty in Florida for procuring a girl below the age of 18 for prostitution. Many, including the MAGA influencers, are hoping that the documents they want Bondi to release will shed new light on his crimes and whether anyone else may have been involved. The only person to have been charged with any offenses is his confidant, again, his girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently serving 20 years in prison on trafficking charges. So there you go. That's what's happening. Now, one of his most outspoken victims recently did pass away from self-deletion. And I will have to say this to everybody who's watching. I find it very suspicious that even after she had an accident with a huge bus that almost killed her, that then she decides to terminate her own life after being one of the most outspoken vocal critics of Jeffrey E. Where are the files at? If you're a Trump supporter, you need to be screaming from the rooftop for this because we need full transparency. I find that the JFK and RFK files that have been released have been mediocre. That first wave of the Epstein files, that was information that we already knew. We need full transparency. And this is coming from somebody who is politically homeless, okay? We need everybody to be speaking out about just how this happened, why this is going on, why is there so much secrecy here? I'm getting enraged and furious at the lack of action from this administration, unless it's on purpose. Attorney General, where are the files? You have the files, where are they? And if you are an influential person in the media sphere, especially if you were pro-Donald Trump, all right, start raising the sirens, start rallying up people, and start demanding more. The voters do demand more. Because if this administration fails to follow through with anything else, or it keeps on releasing information we already have, where are the files that we want? That's what I want to know.